hello. I've rarely been so productive. I suspect this will take hours to upload. This was inspired by Dan and his true, interesting and relevant point made in the comment section of my earlier response video, where one poor doofus did not, made a silly point, but also misspelt the word counsellor. So Dr. Evans was a counsellor once, and he said he wanted to decriminalise sex crimes against children. I'm guessing the typo there was deliberate, but I could be wrong. I hope so. I mean, I am not going to brag about my complete lack of education, but when somebody of my standing, I'm very lucky actually that I took to reading and writing. It's covered up for a woeful lack of schooling. Anyway, whatever. It is true. And Ginny, you can see, asked for a source or citation. So here it is. Now first, actually, let's start with Dewi Evans bigs himself up as like a kind of David against Goliath figure, I think, if you listen to the Raj Prasad episode. Anyway, Dewi's been rambling on at length about stuff. Raj has to, because he's kind of analysing him throughout. He has to say, wow, you really are a bit of a maverick, aren't you? You really will put yourself out there to improve patient safety or whatever. And Dewi's like, yes, actually, yeah. And I mean, maybe it's true, but I just find it difficult to believe he's done anything for any reasons except for narcissistic supply and good old-fashioned Wonga, his kind of case and all that. It's obviously it's why Michael McConville's review of that interview was fantastic. God, he's such a smart guy. Like, he's brilliant, isn't he? The stuff that he points out, about his psychology is really, really interesting and appears quite spot on. He really bigs himself up as like, I'm not scared of the lawyers. I'll take them on. I mean, maybe that's fine. Maybe that's easy if you are a dishonest person. For somebody who works so much with clinical negligence, as he claimed, sure as fuck did skip over an awful lot of medical negligence. And the children Lucy Letby was accused of murdering, didn't he? Referring to it as excellent care. Anyway, rather than run into an extended polemic of all the things I dislike about him, it's kind of noticeable how many of the men in the case against Lucy Letby, how many of the colluders and conspirators, I think I will call them that now, appear to be sleazy old grotbags. I've always thought the misogyny reeks, but it's quite interesting. They all strike me as men who would really struggle with boundaries and probably get into protracted struggles with HR in any kind of modern office environment, although it became quite clear through Thirlwall inquiry, didn't it? Was it Arian Powell saying, we were lucky with our consultants in some ways, but, they thought nothing of standing there absolutely bellowing, screaming at colleagues who ranked below them in the hierarchy. Anyway, so in the 90s, I'm sure before and after, but certainly in the 90s, there's an awful lot in the newspaper archives regarding Dewi's political ambitions. He just strikes me as another Jairam, to be honest. He stood for Plaid Cymru. He was happy to go on the record as long as his photo was published, I'd imagine. And he was a bit of a media whore. So here he is, looking absolutely hysterically anemic, feeble, emaciated, like he's been kept in a dark room, but with curiously bouffant hair. You know, I mean, even thinking of the weight of hair against flesh and bone, you'd have thought it still probably makes up 80% of the man's weight. Crikey. Yeah, he has complained that nurses are just terrible for fawning over doctors, which, if that's not a sign of a pathological delusional state, then I have no idea what is. And now on the right, you can see him slightly later on looking a bit like a young Nicholas van Hoogstraten and just as sinister as well. But yeah, one word of caution. If you are looking through the archives and see a Dewi Evans he will often be talking about children and stuff, there was a different Dewi Evans in Carmarthen at the time who was head of social services. So they are different people, don't confuse them. And if you see this, what I'm about to show you, that will become very clear. So here we are, the South Wales Evening Post, Monday, 19th of November 1990. Lucy Letby would have been 11, coming up to 11 months old. I don't know why that seems really poignant, but it does. Child abuse, jail worry. Quote, many perpetrators of sexual acts with young children do not understand and cannot be made to understand that they have done wrong, according to a leading West Glamorgan paediatrician. Continuing quote, people's lack of guilt and ignorance of wrongdoing after sexually abusing children supported an argument for decriminalising the offence, said Dr. Dewi Evans. Close quotes. This fucking man. This is the man that we're meant to be listening to, and who is telling us that we're being offensive towards the families. Oh yeah. He was always motivated by child welfare. I mean, my God, what the hell? There is absolutely no justification. That should have buried him right then, back in 1990. He should have lost his medical licence and just been shunned. Quite seriously, how was he taking care of children? How was he taking care of children? You are seriously telling me that, there's some disease that makes these people just, they can't help themselves. They don't understand, and there's no point trying to teach them. Jeez, it makes me so angry. And I am one of the string 'em up brigade in regards to these particular offenders, but I try not to be too reactionary. I really, really do. This is inexcusable. Check the man's hard drive. Quote, Dr. Evans, a leading child specialist at Morriston and Neath Hospitals, was speaking in his capacity as a West Glamorgan County councillor on a debate on a new initiative to help children overcome the trauma of being the innocent victims of child abuse. Well, thanks for keeping on the point there, Dewi. Yeah, I'm sure all of the abused children of your constituency were really, really pleased to see you reflect on the kind of innocent nature of those people who groomed and abused them and did all of those terrible things to do even worse things and destroy their little lives. Quote, no one on the Children's Subcommittee was against the initiative, which is a county council partnership with National Children's Homes starting next spring and costing more than $500,000 to run over the next 5 years. Well, that's great, isn't it? No one was against it. Let's focus on the fact that your leading paediatrician is saying that nonces just cannot be held responsible, and we should stop persecuting them with, what is it, lawfare? It's probably lawfare, isn't it? This should have ruined him. It should have ruined him. Quote, the Social Services Committee will now be recommended to finally approve the scheme, which also involves the purchase and fitting out of a project base. probably in the Port Talbot area where the incidence of child abuse is most rife in West Glamorgan. Close quotes. They're talking about children in care. I'm talking about the most vulnerable children. Absolutely, by far, the most vulnerable children in society. And how do they recover? And good old Dewi steps up to say, you can't really hold the paedophiles responsible for the life-changing damage that they inflict, and which, as we know, was rife among care homes, particularly back in the 80s and 90s. Quoting again, but the emotive subject inevitably triggered off a lengthy discussion on what is nationally one of the most disturbing issues of the day. Everyone's very emotional, you see. So we need calm and practical minds like Dr. Evans. Quote, Councillor Dr. Evans described it as a, quote, highly charged issue and said there was an argument for decriminalising sexual offences against young children, close quotes. Let me read that again. Councillor Dr. Evans described it as a highly charged issue and said there was an argument for decriminalising sexual offences against young children, close quotes. Pretty magnanimous of him, isn't it, to acknowledge it's a highly charged issue, which kind of feeds into you guys are a bit hysterical about this, but let me be logical. I mean, anytime you see him talking about how Lucy Letby is evil and how those concerned about this appalling miscarriage of justice are offensive, remember this. In fact, why has no interviewer confronted him with it? I mean, this is just like, this is the most despicable thing. And it's just completely incomprehensible. I mean, it really has left me quite speechless, and I've known about this for over a year, but just reading it again has really, it's actually made me feel a bit sick. Genuinely, I feel a bit sick. It's simply unfathomable to me. It's beyond any ability to rationalise or just be. There's oh my God, it's just sick. He is sick. Quoting Dewi here. There are people who do not consider they have done anything wrong, and you can't counsel someone who feels he has done nothing wrong, he said. Close quotes. Well, yes. Okay. What? That's, yeah, you can't. I mean, does even teaching them that it is wrong, because I'm fairly sure they're aware that society views it as wrong, even those absolute grotbags in Pi who you quite likely supported. I'm sure even they understood that society regards it as wrong. That's not really the point. And actually, I mentioned Pi, which I always associate with the late 70s up to early mid-80s really, but maybe Wales caught up on it really late, because the next paragraph, quote, Assistant Social Services Director Colin Priest said he did not want to enter into the national and highly controversial debate on decriminalising child sexual abuse. End quote. So there was a national debate going on in 1990. I probably wouldn't remember that. It's inexplicable, isn't it? But, it looks like he went into some apologia of his own. Quote, but, he said, the general experience was that prison did nothing for offenders as they carried out similar offences on release from jail. There's one obvious resolution to that, isn't there? And I'm not being string 'em up here either. You just don't release them. I think Dewi thought he was being really progressive, actually. You know, he's a media whore. He always has been. I think he's a little bit... Yeah, he's one of those awful contrarian types who, I'll say the unsayable, but there's a heavy tilt towards excusing men and pathologizing women. Quite likely as hysterical, but you know, when you think about the Linda and Bonnie, I can't remember their names, Linda and Bonnie case, then that's fairly instructive as to what kind of a person he is, isn't it? You know, he's a paediatrician who thinks he can grandstand and pontificate on the psychological processes of child sex offenders with anything more than a layman's, like he's not a psychiatrist, and then he uses psychiatric terms to condemn a woman and remove her child from her for life. And, you know, all the family courts, the secrecy, complete Kafkaesque nightmare of family courts. You've got somebody like this. I mean, he's not getting headlines out of that, so why is he doing it? And I bet it's not going to be for an altruistic reason. There's an awful lot of the search results on the British newspaper archives is relating to a row in 1988 where he said babies were dying due to lack of services and equipment and staffing at Morriston Hospital. And, you know, in that regard, like, you could view him really favourably for that. But considering his complete refusal to engage with any of the horrific absences of care, you know, referring to the doctors as keeping excellent notes when we know they weren't and they were being put back retrospectively, or that tiny 800-gram baby, child C, not seeing a consultant till he was 3 days old. I mean, how can that slip by you? Or child H with the needle left in her chest and the repeat punctured lungs and the drains, and the child D with the lack of antibiotics, and just, he's not an honest guy. This isn't somebody who's got any kind of virtue or principle behind him. I don't believe that. I don't think there's anything you could do to convince me of that. He said some possibly helpful things about, well, they referred to in the early 90s Welsh papers as gypsy children. I don't know whether he means Romany or Pavi, like Irish travellers. But, you know, it's like, oh, they never abuse their children. Just, I think he really did regard himself as being very progressive, but it's kind of edgelording. And, I mean, come on, you can't tell me he looks like a sinister son of a bitch, can you? Come on. He's very Hoogstraten. If you don't know who Nicholas van Hoogstraten is, look him up. It really reminds me of him. So, part of Dewi's shock jock and contrarian and progressive policies was this in 1999, just a mere 9 years, 8.5 years after he said there was an argument for decriminalising sex abuse of children. So here we go. He's a paediatrician, remember. He's not a gynecologist, or, you know, he's not a therapist. He presumably isn't bothered so much by gym slip mums, I think they would have said back then, Morning after pill in schools. Give girls the right to keep contraceptive use secret. Now, I am not necessarily against this, but the oversimplification, and I will get onto some other issues in a moment. Yeah. It's obviously I have daughters, and I would be absolutely devastated if they were to go and take the morning after pill or be having sex without having spoken to me. But I fully understand for plenty of girls this isn't possible. However, you'd have to wonder what's going on that their parents wouldn't care about them. I mean, it can't just be, oh, you can't talk to mum and dad, so all right, take this. I mean, it depends how old the girls are. But it's just worryingly simplistic the way he frames it. And I mean, morning after pills are they're not protection against STDs. They are a one-off thing. They're not like the pill or condoms. Condoms. It's what you want kids to be. Jesus Christ, kids. It's what you want people outside of committed relationships to be using, isn't it? This is just suspect. I mean, just the cherry on the cake, because he said this in response to 12-year-old girls getting pregnant. Two 12-year-olds in South Yorkshire, so a long way away. And 4 years ago, a Swansea 12-year-old also gave birth. I mean, my God. How, if you work with children and any kind of safeguarding, oh my God. So yes, obviously, 100 times taking a morning after pill is far preferable to having a child at 12 years old. But somebody who is probably a bit older than 12 has knocked that child up. And that is a safeguarding issue. I can't believe you would have to say it. You can't just wave her away with a magic pill that fixes it all. And it gets worse here. Quoting Evans, "It should be directed mainly towards girls, as I do not think males are capable of this kind of discipline." I mean, again, they just can't help themselves, men, can they? Whether it's, well, when it's towards children, They cannot help themselves. So just tell the girls, right, here's this tablet. You don't need to tell anyone. It's a little secret between us, and that's absolutely fine. There will 100% be girls taking that, not telling their mum, and their mum would have listened. You do not go offering fucking morning after pills to 12-year-old girls. I've had sex with a fertile bloke, like probably someone who's hit puberty, it's not that likely to be a boy of 12, is it? Like, what about STDs? What about the emotional impact? And why the fuck aren't you hammering boys with the fact that they are responsible? If that girl doesn't want to take a morning after pill, well, tough luck, mate. That's the mother of your child for the rest of your life. And yes, you have to contribute. And yes, you also need to get your manky little dick checked out somewhere. Boys, they can't control it. Men, they can't control it. This is a man who thinks because paedophiles don't think they've done anything wrong, they probably shouldn't be locked up. And yet, when a mother finally starts pressing complaints because of the complete refusal to take her daughter's serious health problems seriously, he armchair diagnoses her with Munchausen's by proxy. That's what he did, and she lost her child forever. Now, if you seriously think that, I mean, say somebody at the Countess of Chester had actually murdered these babies, and I'm going to say it's not Lucy Letby for this. Say another female nurse came forward and said, look, I'm sorry, those babies, you know, they needed a swift exit. I know that sounds really offensive, but it's just a, you know, thought experiment. I think I did the right thing. You can't tell me otherwise. I mean, is that okay, Dewi? Is it? He is one dark personality. He really is. He's a exhibitionist. He likes to show off. He's grandiose. He refuses to reflect on whether he's made a mistake ever. He's vindictive. He's clearly kind of histrionic in terms of coming up with ways in which the babies could have been harmed. He's completely insensitive in the way he talks about it regarding the babies, you know, talking on that Daily Mail podcast about how one of the babies may have been screaming in pain for half an hour after, you know, because it was suffering a heart attack, which is just, he admits something he can't prove. It's just speculation. How distressing. He's a dark, dark man. He really is. So I will leave it with that. Good night.